Hello there, class. My name is Shay, and today I'm going to be teaching you a lesson in the Scratch programming language. Okay, so let's all log into our ThinkLand accounts, and from there we can click on the Scratch editor in the top corner of the screen, top left corner of the screen. While you're all doing that, I will take attendance in the meantime. Okay, everybody in. Okay, so as I said, we're going to be learning in the Scratch language today, and the project that we're going to be building is a very simple game. It's called Virus Spinner, and I'll show you the game in just a second. So once you've loaded up into your Scratch editor, we can click up on the top, Project Templates, and then you'll click on the first template, the Scratch Trial Class Virus Spinner number 1. Cool, and you're loaded in with this screen. Okay, so before we go any further, let me just speak and I'll now share my screen with you. Give me 1 second. Perfect. Okay, so let's just break down quickly what we're going to be doing for the day. Okay, so I'm going to take you through what we're going to be creating, which is this game, Virus Spinner. I'll take you through why we're going to be doing this, basically what the objectives are. We'll code the game out together and we'll see how to do it. And then afterwards we'll reflect on the lesson and do a quick summary. And then I will give you some homework to do with regards to this lesson, just basically to add on to it and make it a bit more of a game. Okay, so let's jump into it. So we're going to start off with what are we creating. So let me just go over to this screen. So this is the completed game. As I said, it's called Virus Spinner. What we can see is our little virus over on the screen over here. We can see our syringe down at the bottom over here. We can see that there's a scoreboard. It currently has 5 on the score, and there's some stop and start buttons up at the top here. Okay, so let's go ahead and click the start button. And as you can hear, the music starts as we started. So, and also our virus now starts spinning and changing colors. Okay, so what we can do is we can go ahead and press space. So space, 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 and as you can see, every time I press space, I end up shooting one of these syringes up in towards the virus. Okay, so what happened there was I ended up colliding one syringe with another syringe. So one syringe touched another syringe, in other words, and therefore that I ended up losing the game. So let me just quickly show you a scenario in which I win the game. So in order to win the game, as you can see, I scored 7 in that previous run. In order to win the game, you need to score 8. So I was one syringe away from winning the game. So let me just see if I can win this time. Awesome. And you see, once I win, the virus is now dead and he's in his dead state, and the score is 8. Okay, you could also see that the background changed from the second try. Okay, so let's quickly head over. You guys will all be over here in the Scratch editor by this point. As you can see, some of the code is already defined over here, but we're just going to go ahead and delete everything. So we want to just right click on the white space and delete 18 blocks, and then say OK. And then we want to click over on the next sprite. I'll get to that in a second if you just want to see where my mouse is. And we're going to right click, delete the blocks. Okay. And then the third sprite, right click, delete blocks. And also our backdrops is on this long tab over here. So we'll delete these blocks as well. Okay, so we want to build everything up from scratch now. Okay, so let's just quickly have a look at this. Okay, so I've got a quick little checklist here. The next thing was why we're going to be building this. Basically, what is the objective? What do we want to learn today? And so in Scratch, we have the broadcast messages, and we have blocks, and we have conditional statements. So these are all the concepts that we're going to be going through today, or items in Scratch that you can work with. Okay. And then let's jump on to how we're going to be building this. So we've got a little checklist over here as to what we're going to be doing. So as you can see, the first thing on our checklist is position and center all sprites accordingly. So let's just quickly hop on back over to this page. Okay. So on our right side over here, we can see a preview of what our game is going to look like. And we can see that our virus pops up when we click on it. A little square pops up around it. And so that is one sprite. Our virus is basically an image. And our syringe is a separate image. And then we've got our backdrop, which is a separate image as well. So these are our sprites. And in order to put the sprites into the correct positions, we need to position them on this plane. So think of this broken down into a Cartesian plane. And this is the y-axis, and this is the x-axis. So 0, x, and 0, y coordinate is in the very center of this image. And everything to this side is positive x, positive y, negative x. Okay, so if we want to place one of our sprites onto the canvas, let's, for instance, our syringe down at the bottom here. It has a center position, which I think is at the tip of the syringe over here. And so let's just move our syringe to 0, 0, and then we can figure out exactly where our center position on our syringe is. Yes, so our center position on our syringe is somewhere at the tip over here. And so when we move our syringe on the y-axis, which remember is this axis up and down, and we can move it negative 75. And as we can see, it moves downwards because this is the negative y. Okay. So that gets us to how we position and center. So obviously centering, as we said, 0x is at the dead center. So if we have 0 in the x, then that means that our sprites will be centered on one another. Okay. And also centered on the background. So, when we started the game, we started it by pressing this green go button over here. So that is an event. So we'll go talk about an event, and we'll say when this green button is clicked, so an event is then triggered. So we can do some things based on this event. And in this case, we are going to broadcast a new message. So I'm just going to call this start game quickly, which is our new message, and then I will explain this. So as you can remember, broadcast was one of the objectives for us to learn today. So we're going to talk about the broadcast block for a second. So broadcast, if you think about it as a WhatsApp message, imagine you have a WhatsApp group and all of your friends are part of that group, and you would like to invite all of your friends over to your house. So what you're able to do is go into your WhatsApp group and broadcast a message to all of your friends to say, hey guys, I'm having a party at my house, come over today. And all of your friends will receive that message, and they can decide, once they receive that message, what do they do with that message? Are they going to come over to your house? Are they going to send you a message to say sorry they can't make it? What is their decision based on the message that they receive? So a broadcast message always needs to go with a receive. So we can put another one over here saying when I receive, and then we can click on this start game message. So all of these, sorry, I put this into the wrong position here. So we actually need to be on the virus over here, not the syringe, because we're working with code for the virus right now. Okay, so we're saying when the start flag is clicked, sorry, 1 second. When the green flag is clicked, we're broadcasting the start game message, and when we receive the start game message, what do we want to do? Well, let's go back to our checklist and just have a look at what the next thing is that we want to do. So it's make the virus spin and change color. So as we remembered, when we started a new game, the virus spins and it changes color. Okay, so how do we go about doing that? Okay, So the first thing is that because we want it to spin and change color indefinitely as long as the game is running, we want that to be in a loop, a forever loop. So we'll just quickly drag a forever loop down over here. And then to make it spin, we click on the motion and we will say turn turn clockwise. We'll make that 5 degrees at a time. And then color, change color effect by, and we'll make this 2. So forever it will turn by 5 degrees and change color effect by 2 when we receive the start game. So let's quickly just test that, and as we can see, that does work. Okay. So what else do we want to do when the game is clicked? Remember, we have this score variable over here, which is this how many times we have hit the virus. Okay, so each time that we restart the game, we would like the score to restart, and we would like the amount of injections that have hit the virus also to be restarted. So let's quickly go over to this side, and we can say set score to 0. So each time we restart the game, we want to set the score to 0. Okay, and when we receive the start game, we want the virus to spin and change color. Okay, so let's talk about the next thing on our list over here, which is blocks. So we've learned now about broadcasts, we've learned about the positions and centering all our sprites. We've made the virus spin and change color. So let's have a quick talk about blocks. Okay, so we'll hop it back over here. So what we have here is a few pieces of 3 blocks of code, separate blocks of code, which are responsible for making the virus turn and change color forever as long as the game is running. Okay, so we might want to use this in a separate place again, but we don't want to necessarily have to go and find this block and then find this block and then find this block every time we want to use this piece of code somewhere else. So what we can do is create a block, and we click on my blocks at the bottom and make a block, and we will call this one change color and rotate. Okay, and we'll press OK, and then what we do is we take this. Now as you can see, it now says define change color and rotate, so that means to give the name. So we will call these 3 blocks this new name, which is change color and rotate. So the next time that we want to use these blocks over here, all we have to do is go to my blocks and grab the change color and rotate and then put that down. So we could use this in multiple different areas like this as many times as we like. Okay, obviously we're only going to use it one time, but every time that it gets used, it will go back to this and it will run this piece of code over here. Okay. So those are blocks, and we'll definitely use a few more of those, but we can just tick that off for now. Then we have conditional statements, and the next task on our to-do list here is to inject the virus. So let's get on to that. So this is now our virus. It spins, our score is reset, it broadcasts the start game. So what we can do is we can come over to our syringe launch over here, which is our bottom syringe, and we can say when the game, when the flag is clicked, this time we won't obviously broadcast start game because that's already been broadcast, so we delete that. But we can say when I receive start game. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so we're actually not going to receive start game in this one, but when we click on the green flag, we are going to have to put this into a loop, because now what needs to happen is this syringe is waiting for the player to press spacebar. And once the player presses spacebar, then the syringe will have to glide from this location up towards the syringe and attach to the syringe, in order to score 1 point. So this is always, every loop or every cycle of the loop, it's going to check, has the player pressed spacebar yet? No. Has the player pressed spacebar yet? No. Has the player pressed spacebar yet? Yes, the player has pressed spacebar. Okay, then we're going to do something. So we start out with our control. Remember, if we want to loop something forever, we use the forever loop. So we'll start forever. And then we want to check if the player has hit spacebar yet. So we start with the if then. So we'll start out with a basic if then for now. As you can see, there's a if then else, but we'll just quickly for now use the if then, and then we'll swap it out just to show you what it does. Okay, so we're saying if, and then we can come down to sensing. So we're trying to sense now as the player pressed spacebar. So we say is key space pressed. We can drop that into the that space. Okay, is the space key pressed? Then, and then we will do something which is glide. So we want motion, we want glide, 1 second, 2. Okay, and where do we want this to end up? Remember, we can move it. This is on negative y75. If we move it to 0y, it's halfway through. It's not far enough though. Let's move it to 75 and see where that ends up. Okay, it's still not quite in the right position. Let's move this to 90, see where that ends up. Okay, that looks fine for now. Okay, so we will go ahead and change this up over here, and we will move this to 90 and glides in 1 second whenever we press spacebar. Okay, so let's go ahead and restart this, put this back to 75, restart the game, and when we press spacebar, as we can see, our syringe traveled from this location to that location, but it took a bit of time to do that. So let's speed that up a bit, and we'll change this to 0.2. Okay, so let's quickly just recap and see where we are again. Okay, so we have our syringe which travels or glides towards the virus, but in the game, if we listen, we've got that sound, that whoosh sound. Okay, so we need to add that whoosh sound as well. So let's go back over to this side, and sounds are sounds over here. Okay, and it's start sound. Here we go, start sound, and we're going with the high whoosh sound. Okay, so now we're going to add in that whoosh sound every time. So let's try, just test that. We need to then reset this back ourselves because it doesn't auto reset, so we'll talk about that in a second. And there we go, we have our whoosh sound. Okay, so let's just reset this one more time. Cool. But remember what we spoke about with grouping code, because we want to use this maybe somewhere else, this inject. So let's move this over into a new block. We'll create a new block here. We'll make a block, we'll call it inject. Okay, and then press OK. So we're defining inject, and we'll put glide and start sound. So when we call this inject, it will glide and start sound. So we say if the key pressed is space, then inject. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to our checklist quickly, and let's recap on where we are. So we now have done the inject the virus. We've spoken briefly about conditional statements. I won't tick it off right yet, but we'll get back to that in a second. Okay, so then after that is the two possibilities after injecting the virus. So the first possibility is it attaches to the virus, and it does a follow. So I'll explain that in a second. And the second possibility is it collides with another syringe. That means that we lose the game. Okay, so what does they mean by follow? So when we shoot this, it attaches and it now follows the virus around. because it's attached. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Because our syringe at the moment, remember when we fire it, it just stays over there. The virus doesn't spin, or the virus should be spinning rather. So remember we forgot to call this. So we've now defined this change color and rotate, but we forgot to call it. So we have to take this block, put it under when we receive start game, and then when we start, now we can see that our virus is spinning. Okay, but remember that every time we restart the game, what do we want to happen to the syringe? Do we want it to be up over here, or do we want it to be down at the bottom? No, we want it to be down at the bottom. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say um, when this flag is clicked. Let's also just quickly have a look at the game one more time, because what we'll see is that every time we restart the game, the syringe is always red. So let's go back over to this side. We're going to say let's make a new one just for make it easier to see. So we're going to say when the flag is clicked, okay, we're going to set the color. So we have a variable for color at the moment, and I'll speak about why we're doing that in a second, but for now we're going to set the color. So it will be set color, and so red is 0, so we're going to set color to 0. Then we want to clear the graphic effect. This is in order to reset the syringe each time that we start the game, so that the syringe is no longer sitting up at the top. Okay. We want to show the syringe. We want it to go to the position, which is the starting position. So it goes to, remember, it's a -75. That's its starting position. We want it to point in the correct direction. If it's not, so we point it at 90. And we're going to change its size as well. We're going to make it half of its size. So we're going to go ahead and change its size to 50%. Okay, so now when we hit run, as we can see, the syringe restarts back in place. And when we stop and hit run, it restarts back in place. Okay, so that's that part done. So we've got the inject. Okay, so the other thing is that every time we launch the syringe, it needs to disappear from here and return back again, because the syringe which is attached is a different sprite. So this syringe is one sprite, it's the launch syringe, and the syringes which are attached are a separate sprite, and they will be handled with their own code. So as you can see, this is the code for the launch syringe, and this is the code for the attached or following syringes. Okay, so the launch syringe, when it's finished its task of launching and attaching, it then needs to disappear. So we need to have it disappear and reappear down at the bottom over here, ready to be launched again. But you also, as you can see here, remember it started out red, but every time you launch it, it comes up as a random color. And so this is why we had to use the color variable, as I was saying, because we're going to randomly change this color variable, and by changing that color variable, we will then change the color of the syringe randomly as well. Okay, so I'm just going to start out, and I'm going to make a new block. We're going to call this block change color and reset. Okay, and then we're going to press OK. So now we've defined this new block, which is called change color and reset, and this is in the syringe launch sprite. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we're going to make it reset back to its original position. Okay, then our next thing is to set its color. So yeah, we're going to set color to, sorry, 1 second. Yeah, can I set color to pick random? We got to change this. Set color to pick random, and we actually want to, sorry, before we pick random, we actually want to multiply this by 20 because we want this to be in multiples of 20. So it's 20 times a number pick random between 1 and 10. Okay, so, and then once we've done that, we actually want to set the color. So remember, this is just changing the color variable, and then once we've changed the color variable, we want to then set the color. Set, we go to variables and we drag the variable out and we put that. So set color to the variable color. Okay, so this is now a function or group of code that we can then take and use elsewhere. So where do we want to these syringe to be reset? Okay, let's talk about this. So if the space key is pressed, then we'll hit the inject. It will run the inject code. Then after it runs the inject, it must change color and reset. So we'll press go, and yes, and there we can see. So every time it gets to the end of its animation, it then resets and changes color to a random color. Okay. So let's quickly go back to our checklist and have a look and see how we're doing for time. Cool, we're doing good. Okay, so we still haven't quite covered everything in conditional statements, so I won't check that yet. But what have we done? We haven't done the attach or the collide yet. Okay, so but we have covered a few things more. So let's go back over now and talk about the attach and the collide. Okay. So let's first do the attach, because I think that's going to be the easiest one to start out first. So once we press the spacebar and we then inject, then we need to do another if statement. So we're going to say if these, let's click over to control, and this time we're going to use the if and else. So we're going to say, we're going to drag this down to the bottom. So we're going to say if the syringe attached, so which means that this syringe comes into contact with one of these launch syringes, then end the game. And we will talk about that underneath here. So we'll just say if touching syringe attach. So this means if this launch syringe is touching the syringe attach, then we will reset the syringe. So we'll go to back to the beginning, and we will stop all. So this is stopping the entire game. Okay. So obviously right now we don't have any of these attached syringes because we've got no code, so nothing will happen to that. But this is what we want this syringe to do if it comes into contact with another. So this is the case where we do touch another syringe. But what is the case where we don't, where our syringe lands fairly inside of the virus and we score 1 point? What happens then? So then we can do a broadcast, because what we want to happen is nothing more needs to happen to this launch syringe. It's now done its job. It's traveled, it's glided, it made the collision, it's then disappeared, and it reset back into a new color, ready for the next key press, and waiting for its next key press. So it's done its job. So now the job needs to be taken over by the attached syringe. So how do we want to tell the attached syringe, okay, we are ready now for the attached syringe to do its job? So we're going to do a broadcast. Remember, we're going to send it a message, broadcast it a message. So we're going to just do a normal broadcast for now, and we're going to broadcast it a new message, and we're going to call it follow, because we want it to follow the virus. Okay. So then we can come over to our other syringe over here, attached syringe, And we're going to say create a new block for this, and we're going to call it follow. Okay, and so this block will define what this syringe does when it receives the follow broadcast message from our launch block. So once this block broadcasts its follow message, which is in the event that it's has been injected but has not touched one of the attached syringes. Okay, so then what happens in that case? In that case, we want that syringe to clone itself because we don't know how many we're going to have. So we just want it to clone itself and stick into on its current location and continue following the virus around. Okay, so we're going to say create a clone of myself, and that's in control. Create clone of myself. Okay, and let's just see what happens now. So let's we also need, remember, we need to receive that broadcast. So we can say when I receive follow, and then we will call the follow function when we receive follow. Okay, so let's quickly go. So now we don't see anything. We do see that this function is running because it lights up, but we don't see anything yet because we haven't made it visible yet. Okay, so now that we've got a clone, we want to define what does this actually look like when it starts as a clone. So we can say control. When I start as a clone is a block. So this this clone can have some different behavior to if it starts as a sprite from the beginning. Okay, so we can call it a clone and say when I start as a clone, we can then we can set its color because we obviously want it to be the same color as the syringe that was launched, so it doesn't change color. So we could say set color effect to and our variable color. Okay. Remember its size. We on the syringe we adjusted its size to 50%. So we basically want to do the things that we did to the syringe. So let's set its size to 50% so that they look the same. Okay, we also wanted to. So we always want it to start at the same location because when it attaches, it will always attach at the same place. So we want it to attach at this 0 and 90, which is the attachment point for it. So we can just automatically place it at 0 and 90, and we can point it in the right direction as well, just to ensure that it is in the right direction. Okay. We can make sure that it shows by pressing show. So this is to make it appear. Remember, it was not appearing before. Okay, and then we can make it turn. So we want to turn it clockwise as well, 5 degrees. Remember, we made this the virus rotate at 5 degrees. So now the syringe will also rotate at 5 degrees. So let's quickly give that a go and see what that does. Okay, so remember, now it turned 5 degrees and then it stopped. What we want to do is it must turn 5 degrees forever. So we'll bring out forever, and let's give that a go. And there we see these syringes stick into the virus. But as you can see, the syringes are now above the virus. So let's put them behind it so it looks like they are sticking inside of the virus. Okay, so we're going to use a go to back layer because remember these are layered. So at the moment the syringe is on a layer above the virus. So we can push it back a layer by using the block. we'll put this block up above here, and we'll say go to back layer, and then as you can see, it's now sticking inside of the virus. Okay, but you see, as we're scoring up, the score is not yet going up, but when we collide with our other virus, as we saw, it stops. Oh, sorry, with our other syringes. So if I collide with one of our other syringes, it actually does stop. Okay, so that is a good thing. But one problem is, if you see, once we attach the virus, it's changing color. So what's going on here? Let's try to figure this out quickly. Okay, so we obviously want it, if we launch a red syringe over here, it needs to stay a red syringe when it's inside of the virus. So what's happening here? Okay, so when we're broadcasting the follow, let's just talk about this broadcast quickly. We're broadcasting follow, okay, and on this side we're receiving follow, and then we are running the function that is defined by follow, which is creating a clone. And when we create a clone, we start as a clone, and we eventually set the color to the variable color. Okay, but what's actually happened, and in that time, is we've changed the color before it got a chance to set the color. So how can we avoid us changing the color before the color gets a chance to reset? We can change this broadcast out with a broadcast and wait. So this time what's going to happen is it's going to broadcast, and then once it receives this broadcast, it will run everything, and it will send a message back to say, okay, I'm finished, and then it will continue on. So let's go now and stop our game and restart, and as we see, our syringes are the same color. Nice. So we're getting there now. Sorry. Well, what have we... My bad. What all have we done now? Okay, so we've now covered the conditional statements. It's the if and the if-else, the else statements. We've done the two possibilities after injecting the virus. So either attaches or it follows. We prepared a different colored syringe for the next launch. We've changed the color effect in multiples of 20. We've attached the launch syringe to the virus. Yes. Okay, so the clone is the right number. We've done the right color, the right color, but the right number. Okay, so we're not checking yet how many syringes are attached to our virus. So we could essentially just shoot as many as we can, as long as we don't touch another one. And yeah, there would be no checks to see how many have we done so far. So we actually want to win this game at some point. We don't want it to play forever. So how are we going to beat this? Okay, sorry, 1 second. Okay. So let's quickly have a look back on our virus. We'll start on our virus again, and we will quickly. So we spoke about setting the score to 0, but we're also going to need a new variable to count how many times have we actually injected this virus, because we want to say once we inject the virus 8 times, then we win the game. So let's go over to our variables over here. Okay, and we'll make a variable, and we'll call this variable injection count. Injection count. Okay, and this variable is for this sprite only. So we'll say okay. Sorry. We actually want to use that variable in. So let's just quickly delete it. My bad. Make another variable, injection count, and we actually want this for all sprites. So we'll say okay for all sprites. So this is a global variable. Okay. So we have this variable now, injection count. This is how many times the virus has been injected, and remember, in the beginning of the game we want to set this to 0 as well. So injection count is 0, our score is 0, and we're broadcasting the start game. When we receive the start game, we want to initialize the virus as well. So remember we spoke about the different costumes of the virus. At the moment we can see the virus is a sad virus. If we click on costumes over here, we can see we have our sad virus and our happy virus costume. So let's change the virus in the beginning of the game. Every time we restart or click the green flag and receive the start game broadcast, we want to reset the virus. So we want to go to looks and we're going over to set costume, switch costume to virus 1. So okay, let's create a new block and we will call it initialize. Okay, and this is our, we're defining initialize. So when we initialize, we want to switch to the virus costume 1. We want to let's change the size of our virus as well. We'll change this to 60% and see how that looks. Okay, so we're changing the size of our virus to 60%. We're setting it, let's put that above, setting it to virus costume 1. Let's rotate it into the right direction. So we'll place it in the right direction firstly, and then we will point it in the right direction. Okay, so remember when we start, we want to call initialize. So we're now initializing our virus, and then we're changing the color and rotating it. But remember, in this game, once we won the game, let's see what happened to our virus. It dies and it goes into the sad phase. So we need to do a quick check to see, is the game over yet? Yes or no? So by doing controls, and we'll say if we initialize it, then but we actually want to do this check forever. So we first put forever, and then we want to say if the counting injection, so we go to our variable, let's first say equals to, so if our counting variable is equal to 8 injection count, that means that we've injected it 8 times. Then we want to switch the costumes. Remember, we switched costume over here to the alive one. This time we want to switch costume to the dead virus, virus death, and we want to stop all because the game is then over. So we're stopping it. So that's when the case in which the virus is in which we win the game. Sorry, the virus will die and it stops all. Okay. And obviously forever we're running these. So now we've put this forever loop up over here, so we can actually take it out over here. We don't need to run forever here again. So we can remove this and put that under there. So now we'll call this color rotate every single time within this forever loop, and we'll run this over and over and over again. Okay. Let's just also say so everything will stop. Okay, now let's that should be fine for now. So let's quickly have a look at this. Okay, so this is our happy little virus. Starts out. Okay, we've got injection count here. That shouldn't be there. Let's quickly go over to variable. We can uncheck it. It gets removed. So every time we restart, our happy little virus restarts back in the same place. We can shoot it. Okay, remember we're not counting up our injection count each time that we inject it. So how are we going to do that? Let's go over here to the follow. Alright, so remember each time we received follow, it ran the follow function over here, and it then cloned itself and starts as a clone. Okay, so let's just use this. Every time it starts as a clone, we want to set the score up by 1. Okay, so we change the score by 1. Let's go change score by 1, and we also want to change the amount of syringes or the injection count by 1. Okay, and we can go ahead and put all this other stuff back up here. Cool. So now let's have a look what happens once we shoot. You can see we're scoring, but okay, our score is going up a few too many at a time. So what's going on here? Let's see if we can figure this out. Okay, so what's going on here is that each time we're cloning the syringe, we're cloning all the other syringes as well that get cloned. So what can we do to prevent this? Well, we can just say, let's only clone the first syringe and then not clone each syringe after that. So we've got this mother syringe variable over here. So what we'll do is we can do a if check on that. So we'll say if, and we will do equals to. So if the mother syringe variable is equal to yes, so if this is the first syringe, then we'll create a clone. So if it's not the first syringe, then we won't create clones any longer. So we will only clone the first syringe each time, the mother syringe that comes in, okay, and not each other syringe that's attached as well. So after that, we'll set the mother syringe to no. Okay. And now, once we start, what's going on? Sorry, our mother syringe. So we need to say when we restart the game, we need to then set the mother syringe to, so when we click the green flag, we need to always make sure that the mother syringe variable is set to yes. So we will say variables set mother syringe to yes, and we will also hide it just so it doesn't show up. Okay. Okay, so now when we restart the game, as we can see, our score only goes up by 1 each time. And when we get to our score 8, you can see our virus dies. Okay, so let's quickly go back over to our checklist. So we've got the right number of clones, we're checking the score. Now we just need to add the background and change the sounds. So as we can tell, we've already got the background in. We just need to add, we could add the music in, but we don't need to necessarily add the music. So we could go forever and then add the audio file. Sorry. Start sound. And we could add any of our music tracks. So we want to do that obviously when we click the start button. And that's going way too fast. Let's have a look what other tracks we've got. Okay. These are not the best tracks. But anyway. Okay, so let's quickly do a recap here. So we've added the background and we've changed sounds. Let's quickly do a summary and reflect on what we've done. So we'll go back. We've got our virus over here. We've done the broadcast messaging, so we understand how to broadcast the message and pick up that message from a different sprite. For instance, in the case of this, the launch sprite broadcasts the follow message, and then it receives the follow message by the attached sprite, and it attaches itself. And we've also talked about broadcast and wait, the difference between broadcast and wait. So wait will wait for everything to be done first and then continue on, whereas broadcast will just continue on at the same time. Okay. Um, so the other thing is we spoke about blocks. So we created this block over here called inject, and we put 2 blocks of code under. We've created this block called change color and reset, and these are blocks which can be called multiple times in different places, and it represents all of the code underneath that block. Okay. And then finally we covered conditional statements, which are these if statements over here. So if we press the space key, then do something else, do something else. Okay. And also we created our game, which is our virus spinner game, which we can win by scoring 8 and yeah, having our virus killed. Okay. So that is our lesson for the day. The homework that we have. So now we've created our game. What we want to do afterwards, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this just to stop the sound. Okay. So we actually only needed to run it once, I think. I think that was the problem. So we should have done something like this and then uh, start sound. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So what do we want to do as our homework assignment? As we can see, our virus doesn't do anything funny. It just sits in one place, and then we launch up our syringes at it. But what if our virus could move around the screen randomly? So let's try even keep it above a certain position on the screen, so it doesn't come maybe more than 3/4 down, and it can move within the space randomly. Um, Around so that it makes it a little bit more difficult and you actually have to time it for the syringe to hit it. So that's our homework assignment for the day. And that is our class. Thank you very much. And if you have any other questions, please let me know. And yeah, we will just do a quick catch up with everybody and make sure we're all on the same page and that we all are happy with what we've done today. Thank you so much. We'll chat again soon. Bye bye.